You are here because you want to be the woman who is loved, chosen, valued, and a priority. The woman who has a man who shows up for you consistently, who would do anything for you, who you can rely on, and who would love you to pieces. You can be that woman, but it's not about waiting and hoping for the world to suddenly treat you differently. And it's not about finding that man. If you're a successful woman in your 30s or 40s and you are exhausted by dating, scared you'll never find love, and unsure why you're still single, you are in the right place. Welcome to Find Love with Emily. I'm Emily Bucknell, and I am not here to give you more of the same old dating advice, tell you to try harder, swipe more, fix yourself, or wait for your luck to change, because you already know that none of that works. This is where we look below the surface at how love really happens, the one rule it always follows, and the reason dating has felt so hard for so long. Because when you see that, dating finally makes sense and love becomes possible again, even if it's been years since you've been on a decent date. So let's get into today's episode. I think we can all agree that when you're single and you're dating in your 30s and 40s, it's so common to have some of those like big, heavy moments where like the feeling of loneliness, feeling forgotten and unimportant, it just hits you. That is what we're talking about inside this episode. And it comes with a bit of a pre-warning. I'm not going to be saying what you expect me to say. What I'm going to say, it may even feel like the opposite of what you think you need. Just a hint, finding the man isn't going to fix this. It's actually a hell of a lot easier. There is a deep truth here. And once you see it, it is forever going to change the way that loneliness that you might be feeling because you are still single, how that lingers around you, how it never seems to lift, because it does have to lift for you to attract the right man into your life. So this episode was actually inspired by a video that I saw recently on Instagram. There was a woman in her late 30s, she's single, and she's reading a letter that she's written to her married friends. One of those letters that you write where you don't actually send it. It's just a way of getting out everything that she was feeling, but hadn't been able to, I guess, say to them. So she talks about how important her friends are to her, obviously, but then how in return she feels like she's only been pushed down their list of priorities. They used to spend weekends together, chat daily. She felt like she had these people that had her back. But now that friendship has been pushed to the side by partners, by children, lives filled with all the family stuff. And she says she knows that she still matters to her friends, but just not nearly as much. And that hurts. And that hurt, that loneliness, it's really specific because it's not just about being single. There's also this element that everybody else's life has moved forward, and in a way they have gained more, like the partner, the children, the family. They've gained something that you haven't. So often you can feel like you don't belong in the same way that you did. It can feel like you have less to add to conversations because you don't have a husband who leaves socks on the floor, or a baby that's kept you up all night, or a toddler who's busy pushing boundaries. And because you don't have all this, what matters to you, your life, it tends to get forgotten. I want to make it clear that we're not here to wallow in this. We're not here to widen that divide going on about how married people don't understand how you feel, because that's not going to do a thing to change this, which I gather is what you want to do because you're here listening to this episode. What we're going to do instead is start to separate the pain you feel from who you are. Separate that pain from how you see yourself and your identity. Because if what I've said so far has resonated with you, you've taken on that pain as you. You see yourself as someone who is forgotten, the one without the real life, the one who's perpetually single, who's never chosen, never important. The one who's always in the background of life, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. That's what I saw in that video, in that woman, and everything that she was saying. Because that video wasn't just about her expressing the pain that she felt at becoming less of a priority for her friends. She was also asking her friends to understand more what her life looks like day to day on the holidays and how all of that leaves her feeling. She was asking her friends to include her more in their plans on weekends, just calling to check in more. She was asking her friends really to fill the space that she was feeling. And on the surface, like that makes total sense. Friendships are all about supporting each other through difficult times. It can feel really mature to be honest about how you feel and to ask for what you need. But the cold, hard truth here is your friends cannot fix this. Even if they included you more, even if they called you daily, even if they showed up perfectly, even if they gave you all the reassurance you ever needed, the pain you feel would still be there. Why is that? And it is so freaking important that you listen to this closely. The pain you feel didn't come from them. The fact that they now have partners, children, families of their own, that life has moved on for them, that didn't create the loneliness or the pain that you feel now. It just revealed it. You feeling like you're never chosen, never a priority, unimportant, left behind or forgotten, that isn't actually because you're single. It comes from the way that you see yourself. That is what is causing the pain, and also a big part of why you are still single. Somewhere along the way, without realizing or consciously choosing it, you began to see yourself as the single friend, the one who's never chosen, who everybody forgets, who's never valued. Not because this is true, but because life shifted and that story filled the gap. Like for me, looking back, this played out so clearly in my life. I'm a middle child, and for sure, I grew up with a ton of middle child syndrome. I felt like my brothers got all the attention, I was forgotten and insignificant. Then as a teenager, I went to an all-girls school and for some reason missed the first boy-girl party one weekend. From that next Monday back at school, everything became boy talk, and I still remember how left out and behind that left me feeling. That's when I never get attention from childhood turned into I'm the one who's left behind in love. And this just solidified further in my 20s when I was the friend with all the relationship drama, always with the guys who were like okay but not great, stuck in situationship, crappy relationships, long periods being totally single, always the friend on the phone crying. So as well as being the one who's left behind in love, I started seeing myself also as the one who's unlucky in love, who's never chosen by the right men. Just think about your life now. When did you first take on this story that you're forgotten, unimportant, not a priority, never chosen? Maybe it was like me as a child, or after your first breakup, or when all your friends around you found love before you did. Even more important than that, though, is understanding this. The way you see yourself determines how you operate in life. So when you see yourself as someone who is forgotten, who is unimportant, then everything and everyone in life will reflect that back to you. In friendships, so becoming less and less of a priority for your friends. In family dynamics, you'll notice that no one ever asks you any more about your love life or just general questions about your life. In dating, you'll attract the inconsistent men who can't plan dates, who don't message back for days, who ghost you, or if you attract anybody at all. And you'll see this too, like people at work, even how strangers respond to you. Because the way that you see yourself is reflected back to you in life and your relationships, this means that your friends, the men that you meet, your family cannot ever make you feel better about this. Like, have you noticed that? Your friends will tell you how important you are to them, but you just don't believe them. Your parents might tell you how valuable you are as a person, but it just doesn't feel true. They cannot heal this for you. It's like you asking them to put a Band-Aid on a wound that only you can reach, like deep in your heart. And it's never going to be enough because they can't go deep enough. And I promise you, you will not meet the right man and have the kind of loving relationship that you want until you do this. You know, even if you do meet someone, while you see yourself as the woman who's forgotten, unlucky in love, never chosen, you will interpret the entire relationship through that. So it's literally doomed from the start to become yet another relationship that proves to you just how insignificant and not valued you are. Say he's slow to reply to a text, instead of just continuing about your day unfazed, knowing that he'll text when he can, You'll get triggered and immediately see it as proof that you don't matter to him. You'll send more follow-up texts that you know you'll regret later. You'll be overthinking and anxious. He could be giving you reassurance 100 times a day that he thinks you're amazing, and you literally will not notice any of it. Why is that? And I want you to hear me when I say this. You can never outperform the way that you see yourself. So when you say, I am forgotten, I'm unimportant, I'm never a priority, I'm never chosen, your brain will literally block out any evidence that you are. So all that you see are all the ways that you are forgotten, never a priority, and never chosen. And this man could be working overtime to show you how much he cares, and you won't see any of it. You'll just continue to ask for more until he gets maxed out and moves on. Which is how so many of my relationships went when I saw myself this way. And then what happens is that your identity as the woman who's never good enough, never worth fighting for, or never chosen just becomes more ingrained. And dating just continues to be this same totally unfulfilling experience because you never find the person who leaves you feeling like you matter, like you're important, and like you're valued. And you won't until you stop and give that deep wound in your heart your attention. You change the way that you see yourself so that life can finally reflect back what it is that you want from relationships, which is ultimately what you want, like even more than the relationship. This is why you feel the pain that you do. You do not want to see yourself this way. You do not want to be the woman who loves forgotten, who's not important, who no one chooses. So then when we come back to the one rule, love follows love, it's not a loving way to see yourself, is it? And no wonder you're finding it hard to find love. This is a big old friggin' roadblock that's stopping it. And it's not how love sees you either. So what do? Love is what heals this. Love for yourself, and not in the cheesy self-love, treat yourself bullshit. You are here because you want to be the woman who is loved, chosen, valued, and a priority. The woman who has a man who shows up for you consistently, who would do anything for you, who you can rely on, and who would love you to pieces. You can be that woman, but it's not about waiting and hoping for the world to suddenly treat you differently. And it's not about finding that man. Remember, love follows love. It starts with you by changing the way that you see yourself, that story about yourself that's become so deeply ingrained and has been operating for years, like probably decades even. And this isn't I'll just think positively about myself from here on out, or recite affirmations that, let's be honest, usually just make you feel worse. This is something that has to be rewritten in the hard drive we all have in your subconscious mind. This is what we do inside Attract Your Man using specific tools as part of a 10-minute daily practice. If you don't do this, that old way of seeing yourself, it's just going to walk with you into every room, onto every date, into every relationship, every friendship. And life will keep reflecting it back to you that you are behind, that you're alone, that you're forgotten and unimportant. I know you're just so over it. So what I really want you to take away from this episode is that feeling lonely, insignificant, or forgotten is not proof that you don't matter or that you'll never find love. It's proof that this old story about you, it's run its course. You are ready to move past it. And the way that you do this is by rewiring the way you see yourself in your subconscious mind. When you do this, like me and my Attract Your Man students have experienced, that's when life, dating, men, friendships, they start to respond differently to you. You break past the inconsistent men, feeling like you don't matter to your friends. You break past the loneliness. All of that gets replaced with love. So it's likely this episode has hit a nerve you may not have realized was there. And for years, I brushed this off because I thought I loved myself. I thought I had good self-esteem. I didn't think this applied to me. I thought that if only other people saw my value, prioritized me, then I'd finally feel valued and prioritized. I hope you see now, though, that it's so much deeper than that, and it's something that's entirely within your control to change. So please know that beneath the way that you have seen yourself until now, you are already someone who is chosen, who is loved, who is important, who is valuable, who can have the loving relationship you've always wanted. And if that doesn't feel true, or if it feels like the world doesn't agree, there are two ways we can go from here. You keep trying to get reassurance from your friends, from family, from men. But like that band-aid, it won't be long until you're reaching for more. Or you can gently change this story at the root in your subconscious mind, so you see yourself as someone who is already valued, who is important, who is a priority, who's chosen, and who is loved. And then step into the relationships that reflect this back to you. I hope you feel relief in that. If you do, you'll find the link for Attract Your Man in the show notes. Go click that now.